North Korea will soon be able to reach the United States with nuclear missiles, probably in about 5 years, due to technology transfers from Pakistan, Iran, and from China and Russia to a lesser degree. Decisive action must be taken before they reach this capability. China should be mollified by prior agreement to withdraw all U.S. forces and to demilitarize Korea after reunification. North Korea should be offered reunification with South Korea under very favorable terms, and the issue should be forced by an embargo so they are either starved out or capitulate. If their 1.5 million man army attacks, they will run out of supplies in 2 or 3 weeks and be surrounded, at which point the North Korean state will collapse. This is one reason the North has not attacked. But primarily, North Korea is an autocratic regime, one-man rule, all-powerful one-man rule, that is unstable. And the leaders fear their own people and their own associates in government more than they fear an attack from the outside. The current leader has faced infighting between factions of the reformers and the old guard military that oppose reform. The leader had to choose, so he chose to side with those who held the guns. He joined the old guard military in opposing reforms and executed his aunt and uncle who led the reformers. He later turned on the military and executed some of them to reassert his control and to instill fear. The leader has even executed his ex-girlfriend and co-workers to mollify his new wife, as well as executing various other people. These executions are carried out in public venues where large crowds of government officials, family, friends, and co-workers are forced to watch as anti-aircraft guns are used to blow the bodies of the condemned literally into small pieces. This is mentioned only to give you an idea of the mindset and of the desperate paranoia and fear of the supreme leader. The inner circle live without knowing if they will be executed at any time for any reason. And by instilling this much fear, the leader has gone too far and is in effect destabilizing his own regime. If this personality that possesses nuclear weapons will do this to close associates and family, what will they contemplate doing to us? There are weekly threats of nuclear annihilation going back decades. They have shelled a southern town, killing civilians. They sank a South Korean naval vessel, killing hundreds. And they once carried out a decapitation strike with hidden explosives that nearly killed the entire South Korean government cabinet. Of all the regimes in the world that might attack the United States without warning, this one is the most likely to do so. Considering the character of the leadership, their history, and their nuclear weapons, it is only a matter of time before something goes terribly wrong. It is time to take the bull by the horns and solve a problem that has thwarted decades of U.S. government administrations. The problem is bureaucracies do not reward risk-taking, and everything worth having in this life is a risk. Diplomacy and bribery have been tried, but have failed. It is time for a comprehensive plan of action before their nuclear weapons can threaten the entire U.S. population. The population of North Korea is restless, and the inner circle lives in fear. A public plan for reunification is called for, one that is transparent to everyone on the peninsula and everyone in the world. There will be a general amnesty for all, from the leader and the inner circle all the way down to the prison guards in the concentration camps who torture and murder people. Amnesty for all. The top government leaders will receive a pension of $200,000 for life, as well as appointments to private business board of directors for corporations that will operate in the North. Those South Korean corporations that will operate in the North will take on one or two high-level former government ministers and apparatchiks. Those who run the state and local government will remain in place for 7 years and receive a $50,000 a year salary. All government workers will remain for 3 years and get $20,000 to $30,000 a year. The military will be enfolded into the South Korean military. All higher level officers will be paid $50,000 for 5 years. The generals and colonels will get a $200,000 and $100,000 pension for life. All upper level persons are eligible for resettlement to China. The common people of North Korea will all be paid $300 a month, increasing to $500 a month for 3 to 5 years. Land will be redistributed to farmers and property will be privatized. Homes will be given to the occupants, and shares in businesses and factories will be given to management and workers. A re-education campaign will focus on primary school children, while adults will struggle to leave the past behind and struggle to adjust to this new reality. The mineral wealth of the country of North Korea will devolve to the South Korean government to defray the costs of reunification. The Hermit Kingdom, North Korea, is isolated to stop just such a message from getting through. Balloons are often sent from South Korea over the DMZ, the demilitarized zone, containing messages and money or food. This strategy will be implemented on a mass scale. 2 million balloons containing cell phones, money, food, and seeds will be released from the sea to reach all parts of North Korea within 1 year's time. The cell phones will look like common cell phones already in usage, but will have a user PIN that will allow access to a phone-to-phone virtual web that connects all 2 million phones and in effect sets up a local internet, phone-to-phone internet, that connects all the phones in a virtual internet. The phones will be used to share video, music, news from the outside, and the reunification plan. Over 2 years' time, this culture of information and entertainment from the phone-based web will permeate the greater society. The leader will attempt to stop people from possessing the phones, using executions and torture, but the allure of the money, food, seeds, and the entertainment value will be too powerful to control people in such dire circumstances. It is said that there are no more grassroots because the people have been living on tree bark and grassroots for years. These are people in desperate straits, so desperate that we in the free world cannot even imagine what these people are going through on a daily basis. Now, for 2 years, the entertainment and news from the outside will permeate the society. Some of the money sent in, besides gold and silver coins and dollars and Chinese currency and South Korean currency, a lot of it will be North Korean currency. And this will increase over time until the value of the North Korean currency drops by more than half. In other words, we will systematically lower the value, slowly destroy the North Korean currency. All the while, all the nations, including China, will withhold access to all foreign currency and all foreign trade. After 2 years, a full-scale embargo will go into effect, and no one or nothing will be allowed to enter North Korea, while people will be allowed to leave. The regime will either take the generous reunification deal or collapse, or more likely, the regime will be overthrown from within. China will have written guarantees, prior guarantees, that upon reunification, all U.S. troops and weapons will leave, the South Korean army will drop down to 500,000 personnel or less, and no military bases or large troop formations will be allowed above the DMZ in what was formerly North Korea, will be in effect an entire territory of demilitarized zone. In addition, if necessary, China will have a verbal agreement that the United States will withdraw from the treaty with Taiwan for self-defense treaty within 2 years upon assurances that China will not invade Taiwan. On the surface, this may seem Machiavellian and too generous to China and destabilizing to the confidence of U.S. allies in the region and everywhere. However, that need not be the case. China, after reunification, will have a fully functioning democracy on its border that the United States is sworn to protect. If they invade China, if China invades Taiwan rather, it will force all their other neighbors into even greater cooperation with the United States. Nothing focuses the mind quite like an imminent hanging. The United States will assure our allies in the region, and by accelerating free trade agreements and creating an Asian NATO that is real, using a lend-lease arrangement to build allied military capability and a credible defense. The current alliance exists on paper, ASEAN, but the lend-lease program by the United States, our NATO allies, and other nations of the free world, giving obsolete and older weapons to these smaller nations that border China, we are implementing a real policy of containment by standing up the militaries of these very vulnerable states. Now, finally, the U.S. will create a real NATO with this Lend-Lease program, an Asian ASEAN NATO. Finally, the U.S. and its allies will no longer have to endure nuclear danger by a rogue regime. Many U.S. administrations have failed to solve this intractable problem, but this course of action can work, and it's time to deal with a growing menace to the peace of the world before the homeland comes under further nuclear threat.